It's the Score North Twin Show.
Whoops. There we go.
What happened to us?
I was talking. I'm like, oh. No.
I couldn't even hear you.
I know. That's why. This is what happens when pilot Declan is no longer flying the plane. Let me see if I can ditch this music here. Okay. We'll check the landing gear.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So welcome in to the Score North Twin Show. We got the sports dad, Judd, former Twins beat writer, Phil here. Our current resident Twins beat podcaster, Declan, is getting married this weekend, so pre-wedding festivities. So we're going to give you a state of the current TV situation edition. We know that many of you stopped being able to watch Twins games on May 1st when the Xfinity/Comcast deal expired, and there's been no agreement. If you're a YouTube TV person, you haven't been able to watch in several years. Basically, you have to either go to the ballpark or watch through DirecTV and their streaming service, or Fubo TV.
Yeah.
Is how I've now consumed.
Or get very creative.
Very
I think
creative.
There's ways with Fire Sticks and things like that, but I have not explored that yet.
Some ways that we shall not speak of to watch Twins games. But yeah, I mean, so the Twins are sitting here with one of the better records in the American League. You know, they're primed right now with one of the best lineups to maybe do some damage down the stretch and in the playoffs. But a lot of fans have not been able to watch a Twins game on TV for over 2 months. So I don't know. Let's start the discussion wherever you want. What are you hearing? What are you theorizing? Where do you want to go with this?
So I think the most important thing is the fact that we are going to have, there is scheduled to be, I should say, because it's a court, and in courts things get delayed, a July 29th hearing in Houston in front of the bankruptcy judge who's been hearing this entire case. Supposed to spill into July the 30th. Now, word of caution. This hearing was supposed to happen last month. It got delayed because, again, everything gets delayed.
Mm-hmm.
I was told that I don't think any hearing in this case has gone off on time. They've all been pushed back. So this has been pushed back already. Now, there's been reporting out there that I want to correct a little bit, but I think it's extremely important because there is a ray of hope here, okay? I'm not coming to you with doom and gloom. Sports Dad wouldn't do that, largely because Sports Dad's affected himself. So why would he sabotage Sports Dad? So there has been reporting out there that this hearing very well could decide if Diamond, which is the parent company of Bally's is just a holder name. They pay Diamond to put
They pay for bad PR.
I can't figure out why they didn't pull this. Now they're going to be replaced by, is it FanDuel or DraftKings?
Are they?
There is an agreement in place to replace them. I think Bally's finally said, we've been getting bleep for months on end here. We're done.
Bally's is bankrupt. Bankrupt Bally's. No, it's not us.
No, we're not bankrupt.
No.
I mean, they might not be in great shape, but they're not as bad as Diamond is. So the reporting has been that the judge, very well, if the judge rules, I believe, to put Diamond into Chapter 7, Diamond is done. And he also could rule that Diamond can continue in bankruptcy as it attempts to come out.
Yeah.
Now, here's the important thing. One is the bankruptcy judge is going to often rule in favor of the company. So he's not there. A bankruptcy judge is not necessarily there to bury the company. The bankruptcy judge is sort of there to see if he can help out. Okay.
Okay.
So like this whole thing about, well, perhaps on July 30th, Diamond will be gone is probably a fallacy. It's probably going to drag on. So where's the hope, you say? And here is the hope. I've done some digging. This is, how can I put this? This is knowledgeable, reckless speculation. How about that?
Educated, reckless speculation?
Educated. Very well put. Very well put. The best case is this. Diamond Sports Group has 3 networks in dominant Comcast markets: Minneapolis, St. Paul, Detroit, and Atlanta. In those markets, the creditors who are obviously involved in the bankruptcy aren't happy with Diamond because they are taking a bath right now because they're not carried by the biggest cable provider in those 3 markets. Now, Atlanta is an entity undo itself because it's extremely profitable and it's big, it's dense. So odds are that Diamond would not pull out of Atlanta. But after the ruling by the judge, there is a chance that Diamond will immediately pull out of the Twin Cities and Detroit, leaving the Twins, the Wild, and the Wolves in the exact situation. And let's just backtrack and focus on baseball at this point, that the Diamondbacks and the Padres were left last year, which is, you take it, we don't want it, but it's all yours. Now, the helpful thing here, as much as they rightfully get bashed, MLB is prepared to step in. So it's not just the Twins. So it's not just, hey, Twins, go produce the games, have fun. MLB has an infrastructure that is prepared to step in and help. It's exactly what happened with the Padres and the Diamondbacks. The good news, Phil, is this. If Diamond goes away, all blackout and streaming restrictions disappear with that contract. And so the next day, baseball and the Twins can market streaming inside the market, no blackout restrictions.
So, okay. So to summarize here, again, when's the scheduled hearing?
July 29th. It probably spills into the 30th.
Okay. So at the end of July, in a few weeks, in addition to the trade deadline being right around that time,
Good
too.
point. 30th.
Very exciting week.
You're right.
So right around that time, it's possible that maybe on August 1st, that Diamond Sports Group / Bally Sports North could just say, yep, we're done. We're out of this thing. We're
in the two markets.
In Minneapolis and Detroit.
Yes.
They could just say, peace out.
Correct.
And then as soon as Major League Baseball's infrastructure could get itself together with the Twins, potentially, again, early August.
Immediately.
This would be a great scenario, I think, for most Twins fans.
Yes.
Early August, instead of games being available on DirecTV through Bally Sports North or Fubo TV, and they're not available on the other platforms, you could just go right to consumers and say, hey, starting right now for the last 2 months, you can pay X amount to just watch games on the MLB app or wherever else they would make the games available, right?
Correct.
Interesting. Now, so the Diamondbacks and Rockies and I think Padres, right, are part of this group.
Yeah, and the Rockies weren't a Diamond team, but I think it was AT&T split from them.
Yep. So there's a small handful of teams, or maybe even a handful of teams now, where you could just pay as a fan $100 or $120 for the full season. That's a discounted price now. It's like $50.
I've got the pricing for you. I've got the pricing for you. So the Padres, Rockies, and Diamondbacks at the start of the year. So get this, entire year of baseball, okay? $20 a month, or for the entire season, $89.99.
Mm-hmm.
As of July 1st, all three, as you just said, discounted it to $54.99 for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, this is the ideal thing would be for Bally's to leave the market, or for Diamond to leave the market entirely, not because they're out of business, but because they basically say, in our bankruptcy proceedings, we do not want to be in a market in which we're not getting carriage, which is the problem with Comcast not carrying them.
So for fans, and obviously, if you are a DirecTV or a Fubo TV consumer, you'd probably rather it just stay the same because you're already paying for your service and you're getting the games as part of what you're paying right now. It's going to kind of flip, and that if the game, because then if Bally's Sports North goes away in 3 weeks, you will not be able to watch Twins games through DirecTV or through Fubo TV, just like you can't right now through Xfinity or YouTube TV, right? Now, you'd have to then go direct to MLB's platform or the Twins platform.
Now, I know for a fact in the Padres case, and I think in the D-backs as well, they actually did work out deals with cable operators and DirecTV.
And you can purchase it through the platform. Yeah.
And spun off channels. So,
yep.
So instead of, hey, coming up at 2 p.m., it's Fishing with Fred.
That's a good point.
And at 3 p.m., it's going to be Where's My Truck? And then at 7, it's Twins baseball. They just have a blank channel all day, and there's no pregame, but just before the game starts, it flickers, and then the game comes on.
You're right. So I should rephrase this. I should say it will no longer be part of the package that you pay for, Correct. The cable package or the whatever platform.
Yes.
It'll be an add-on, just like HBO Max is an add-on or whatever, right?
Correct.
So this is when I lived in Seattle, for instance, for a couple years, it was way easier to watch Twins games out of market if you're a YouTube TV guy. So what I would do is I would do the extra innings package out of market, and then Twins games would pop up in the menu on my YouTube TV. So I'd be scrolling down. There's ESPN, ESPN2, and there's the Twins versus the White Sox game, and it would say in the menu starting at 6:30 with the pregame. So it'd be an upcharge, obviously, but you'd at least be able to watch the games on some of these platforms. Okay,
yes,
that makes sense.
And if you're concerned, well, are people going to be fired? Are they going to lose their jobs? First of all, behind the scenes, that is taking place right now. Like a lot of
they're figuring it out.
Smaller, right? But the thing about it is nothing would really change because if I'm not mistaken, Provis and like Morneau and Perk and that crew, I think they're paid by the Twins.
They are.
So
yep.
So like the Twins would just say, okay, you're doing the games for us now, as opposed to on a different platform. And the majority of people that work as those games, as you know, are freelance contractors anyway. They're not Diamond Sports employees. They're employed, on a freelance basis to produce the game. So nothing would really change. It would just provide streaming, and it makes no sense at all in these contracts that these RSNs have basically been able to sit on streaming rights. So this would just allow everyone to watch the games. And, if around August 1st it took place, that's a huge boon because now the Twins are probably a playoff team. So you're going to get a lot of subs quickly, I think.
They should. Yeah, I have a thought on that. And I wonder if the Twins would do some sort of hybrid thing because, you got to be a little careful about just putting everything behind a paywall right away. Now, this is where semantics get in the way because technically everything is behind a paywall. When you're paying for Xfinity, you're paying $200 a month or whatever the hell it is. Like Twins games are part of, up until May 1st, were part of that package, but those games were behind a paywall. It was just part of the Xfinity paywall that you're paying for, right? YouTube TV's is a paywall that costs like $80 a month or whatever.
Absolutely.
So, it's all kind of semantics, but I wonder if they would put maybe like one game a week. This is what they did 25 years ago, okay? 85% of the games are on MSC, Midwest Sports Channel, back in like the mid to late 90s, and then every Sunday a game would be on Fox 29 or
45,
something, right? 45. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so Fox 9 Plus has been very active in the sports world. It would not be surprising to me at all if they carried like a Twins game a week. I think that there's a fighting chance that the Wild is going to, because hockey is definitely going in this direction. I think that there's a fighting chance that they might end up carrying Wild games as well. Baseball's a little bit still more of a paywall thing. I think hockey, as much as it hurts, I think they're like, okay, we've got to make our product accessible. But Phil, this is the baseball thing too. And we talked about this with Pat on Unchained today. The thing with baseball is TV is your greatest marketing vehicle. Like it is. Like you can say you should go to games. Well, that's great. But for a family to go to a game now, it's $20 to park. Food's expensive. Souvenirs are expensive as hell. Tickets aren't cheap, right? So like the greatest way to advertise your product is to get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible. And that's why this entire thing makes no sense. And that's why I do think if you come to a dad who likes baseball or a wife and you say $20 a month, that's a pretty small check to write.
Yes. Let's get into the economics of this for a second, because you've kind of hit on like the other, there's two parts to this conversation. There's how can fans watch the Twins, which we just kind of laid out. If this plays out, it'll be a lot easier to access a Twins game. You might have to figure out, can I afford to pay extra for Twins? Would I have to then because for me, like, part of the reason why I cut cord on Xfinity is because the main reason, this is 5 years ago, the main reason why I had Xfinity is to watch like local sports. But then YouTube TV came along at the time and they offered for like $50 a month, I could watch local sports and all the other channels. Like it's totally a no-brainer.
Right.
But then once the Bally Sports North or Fox Sports North got taken off of YouTube TV, and it's like, okay, now, and then when we moved out of market, now I'm paying for YouTube TV and I'm paying for the games. But anyways, like part one is how can fans watch games? Part two is how does this all affect the Twins' payroll and ability to put a competitive team on the field and sign a free agent pitcher, not let a Sonny Gray go, right? Or maybe add a piece at the trade deadline that costs money next year. So I was doing some digging on this, and this number is pretty public. The Twins were getting like $50 to $55 million a year from their Bally Sports North Diamond Sports Group deal.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that this is the last year that they are going to be getting a check like that from any entity, right? Like no one starting next year is going to line up and say, we will give you $55 million a year to run these games.
They're getting, so that number came out only because it was part of the discovery in the court case last year. The Twins are making, we don't know how much less. The Twins are making less than that now. So Bally's
$40 million maybe.
Yeah. So long story short, it sounds like the Twins thought, like a bunch of teams, we will go to MLB.com, take their infrastructure and screw Bally's. And it's, from what I've been told, baseball came back like in February and said, okay, we got some problems. Just take what you can get. So Twins are getting a check, but it's not what they were. So yeah, let's say for the sake of this, $40 million. Let's just say that.
So how much of the overall revenue pie does local TV represent? And from my digging, and I might be a little off on this, from my digging, ticket sales represent like 25 to 30% of revenue. Concessions like hot dogs, beers, everything represents like another 15 to 20%. So you could say stadium tickets and concessions. And I'm not even counting like where merchandise falls in here, but
correct. Maybe
it's part of that, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
But like getting people into the stadium, paying for tickets and concessions, I believe makes up like 40 to 50% or more of the Twins and most teams' revenue. But local TV at $40 to $50 million a year for the Twins, it's more for some other teams, is like 15 to 20% of the operational revenue.
Right.
So if that check doesn't exist anymore going forward, how can you quickly replenish that part of your revenue? It's not like the NFL where there is no local TV revenue. Every game is nationally televised or part of like a Fox or a CBS regional. And everyone is, that's why the Green Bay Packers basically bring in the same revenue as like big market teams because everything is split. In baseball, a large chunk of each team's revenue is how well can you fill your stadium and sell beer, and how much can you get from your local TV deal. And I'm telling you, if that's going away, and now you're starting from zero, all right, we're going to start charging $20 a month. Like that might build up over 5 or 10 years, but you're starting from zero the minute that you start going direct to consumer.
So basketball and football are comparable in the fact that, and football's king, but basketball now, with the new contract that they're doing with NBC, Amazon, and I think there's a third involved, that represents in both cases a huge chunk of national TV pie that gets split up. Baseball doesn't have a great national TV deal. Baseball is much more comparable, unfortunately for them, to hockey right now. Hockey, again, is ticket sales, suites, concessions, and that's what baseball is. Now, here's what has to happen with baseball, though, because I think our problem now is we've turned this into a Twins discussion too much. It's a baseball discussion. Now, it doesn't involve, now here's what's weird, it doesn't involve the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Cubs. But the majority of baseball, and they've talked about this, and this is where you need a commissioner who's strong. And I know that you work for the owners, but the majority of owners would benefit. You need to find a way to pool your local revenues together and share them. And baseball immediately says, well, the Yankees and Red Sox won't. They don't play fair.
We have bigger markets. We
for the
bring in
health
more
of your
revenue.
sport,
we're not subsidizing the Rays. Yeah.
For the health of your sport, Phil, I don't care anymore. You need to do this. Like this is not
football subsidizes the Bengals and the Packers.
And if you can't subsidize a team, then you need to contract. Like I'm talking about the future of your sport. But this whole thing, like we've turned this into a Twins discussion, but the Twins, the Padres, the Rockies, go through the whole list. The Marlins, probably. The Rays, for sure. all of these teams are facing the same Cleveland are facing the same problem, which is they're all saying what you are, which is when we crunch the numbers, how do we do this? But they're doing it on a model that's been around forever, right? RSNs and TV. They need to pool it together. You're not going to have a level playing field financially now until you do. Because in my opinion, what you're trying to do, which I think teams do as well, is not it's not feasible. It's not.
Yeah,
You need to pay into a pool.
I agree. I think it does get tricky because you've got like 5 or 6 huge markets with either they own their own network that's successful or they own a part of a network that's successful. Can you get away with taking like 20 or 22 remaining teams or 25 remaining teams and pooling? So we're going to put the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the biggest market, biggest eyeball teams. You guys keep operating as you will. And the other 22 or 25 teams are going to be part of a pot over here. You know, I don't know what the solution is. Now, the MLS did something really interesting 2 years ago. They said, okay, like instead of everyone kind of fending for themselves and like the Loons having a deal with Bally Sports North over here and then, you know, the Red Bull over there, they said, hey, 10 years, $2.5 billion from Apple TV Plus.
Yep.
And all of the games or most of the games can just be found on Apple TV, right?
Yep.
And then I think they have like, you know, a national TV package. I think there's still some like a Fox part of it and an ESPN part of it, whatever,
Correct.
right? But in that case, for MLS, a sport that's trying to gain more traction, more casual fans, it's a little harder to stumble into an MLS game if you don't want to pay for an Apple TV subscription or an MLS subscription. So I think baseball is in a similar spot. I think baseball is closer to MLS than it is to NFL, and that like the NFL is just wildly the most popular league in the country.
And basketball's going up, not, you know.
Yeah, basketball's closer to NFL.
Yes.
In terms of like popularity and whatnot, national TV relevance.
Yep.
For baseball, like nobody watches the Sunday night baseball game of the week anymore like they did 25 years ago. So you like nationally, you're just not as relevant. You're trying to get younger people to consider baseball more than you were 30 years ago. Can you just put everything behind a paywall like Apple TV, or are you only going to cater to your hardcore fans and not be able to grow beyond that? It's kind of a mess actually as you lay the whole thing.
It's a complete mess. But to what you're discussing here too is, first of all, let's get in a market like this, let's get a dedicated weekend over the air package so everyone can watch it. I mean, I don't need to show you every game for free, but what we're talking about is incentivize. Like, I think a lot of sports fans and Twins fans would be very pleased with like every Saturday and Sunday they can watch games.
Baseball day in America.
And then you can say, hey, if you want to watch the Wednesday game, it's on Twins TV. You're a hell of a lot more likely then because you can see it's out there and you're probably not pissed off at the team, right?
So could you do something, because part of the power of the NFL is, I mean, the sport is fast-paced and fun and marketable. Like the nature of the sport is just when you tune into a game for 25 minutes, you're going to see Patrick Mahomes. You might not see Royce Lewis. Well, he's injured, but like, you know, so I think football's a better TV product than baseball. But to your point, could you take, if you're baseball, maybe you've got your like Sunday night thing, and NFL has that too. Sunday Night Football, it's a standalone game on NBC.
Sure.
Would there be enough value to go to Fox? Let's just say Fox and say, hey, instead of doing like a nationally televised game on a Saturday, what if Saturday was baseball day in America? Much like NFL. We're going to have 12 games, all regionally produced.
I think this has been discussed.
Just like the NFL. If you're in Minneapolis, you get the Twins game. If you're in San Francisco, you get the Giants game, just like the NFL.
Yes, I think this has been discussed.
And then the rest of it is part of a local package, direct to consumer.
Right, but at least if you do that, you're at least providing a advertising free platform for people to find you again. And baseball, I think we need to understand, you know, football and basketball's star power, right? It's quarterback power, it's wide receivers, it's guards that can shoot threes. Baseball's a regional sport. So like, I don't think that you are for the most part, I don't think that you're a national fan of like, I got to watch the Twins because of Royce. You might be, but it's far more likely that you just like the Twins. So how do I make it as simple as possible for you to find the Twins? And to what you're saying, it's regional. So if I'm in San Francisco, I want to see the Giants, right?
Yeah. And all the games start like there's a noon block and a 3 o'clock block, just like the NFL.
But if you want to problem solve here too, you brought this up with Pat, and I think you were sort of joking, but I think it's an idea that is a great one. Why not introduce? And I know baseball fans, you might want to tune out right now because what Sports Dad is about to say is going to offend your ears. Longtime baseball fans, why not introduce an in-season tournament? And because this is coming, so don't try and fight it. They're going to expand playoffs more. They just are. It works. It's people want more. And let's say a National and American League team, or I don't know, in some vein, 2 teams at least, or one, qualify for the playoffs based on winning that tournament. So you don't have to win the regular season. So you still have teams that win the division. You still have wild cards, but one of the wild cards is a winner, and I'm spitballing completely here, of an in-season tournament that you televise. And then, as we talked about with Pat, get the regular season done so that the playoffs are more of an October thing. They don't spill into November when people do not want to watch. And then if you can focus on expanded playoffs, I do think nationally, Phil, I think there would be an appetite to watch baseball if it's presented as playoffs.
So I think we mapped out a couple of years ago when the NBA announced they were going to do an in-season tournament. We kind of mapped out, hey, baseball's looking to just create more spikes of excitement, just more things, more reasons to turn your head and pay attention to baseball. And I remember we mapped out what an in-season baseball tournament could look like. I don't remember I don't have like my notes in front of me, what it wound up being, but we said, you would devote basically like 3 weeks or a month. And all those games would also be part of your regular season record. And much like the NBA, if you bow out early, then like the open date gets filled against another team that bowed out, and that becomes a regular season game. Right. I mean, in general, the NBA and the NFL have tons of must-watch dates on the calendar. And in the NFL's case, a lot of those must-watch dates are outside of the actual games being played. But like the NFL calendar for 12 months is littered with, I got to see that. There's 17 regular season games that you have to see because it's urgency. That it's once a week. Each game means a lot more than one of 162 by nature. Right. But then throughout the offseason, they've got, this is free agency frenzy week. This is draft week, and we know all the players from college football. Yes. Baseball, part of it by the nature of their sport, but part of it by their own doing, doesn't have hardly any must-watch dates on the calendar. It used to be like opening day was kind of must-watch. Well, they've butchered that. Let's put the first game at 3 o'clock in the morning in Asia. I know. And then, the regular season games aren't must-watch necessarily. So create more must-watch moments. Create a more impactful offseason of free agency. Find creative ways to get people to turn their heads and say, this is interesting. I have to watch this. Yeah, and basketball is at least providing a blueprint of sorts. Now they don't put their tournament champion in the playoffs. I think it's been discussed. But I mean, if you did that, and I mean, let's say a crappy team makes it. It's 2024. No one's going to sweat it. It's expanded playoffs, right? And it might be a good story. Like, let's say the Tampa Bay Rays this year make that. It's going to engage their fan base, which is your goal. The draft is hopeless. I mean, it's going to be in a couple days at the All-Star game. They've tried. It's hopeless. No one knows. It's like the hockey draft. Nobody knows who these guys are. Sure. But you hit on the one that, I'm sorry, you've got to butt heads with the union on. You need to create a signing frenzy for free agency. Somehow. The fact that you're not. Some structure. Is lazy. My biggest problem is baseball's lazy. Baseball loves to fall back on until they're up against it. Games are now going 320. Oh my God, we can't have that. What can we do? Pitch clock. Guy on second to start and guys, my age go crazy. You can't do this to baseball. Well, guess what? Baseball shouldn't give a crap about Judd Zolgad. Baseball should give a crap about a 22-year-old kid who's like, that's really cool. Yep. But the signing frenzy thing, to not address that and hide behind, when you have your best players now going into spring training unsigned, it pisses me off to no end. Dude, the NFL, and part of it again is the structure. The NBA is the master at this, in that there's so much structure that there's very little time or reason to negotiate contracts. There's max contracts so every team, there's a salary cap that's soft and you can go up above it if you re-sign your own players. But like there's a salary cap structure. And then there's an individual player contract structure. If you're one of the best players, you get a max contract. There's zero negotiation. The only negotiation is, where do you want to play? Is it with this team or that team?
Sure.
And so because there's nothing to haggle over, you're not haggling over 3 years or 5 years or 4 years, or like Paul George, it was, well, you can either take a max 4-year contract if you go here, or you can go back to the Clippers, who are drawing a line in the sand and only offering 3. It's like, okay, well, that'll take me a day to figure out. Right. With Bryce Harper a couple years ago, it was literally like 5 months of, well, we want a 15-year contract. And teams are like, well, that's absurd. We'll offer 8. We'll start there. Oh, I guess we could come down to 14. Maybe we can come up to 9, and like back and forth. We want $40 million a year. Well, we're comfortable with 27. Okay, what if we come down to 30? Like, there's no structure.
No.
And there's no deadlines until the season starts. So, like, in the NFL, real quick, no one knows who the left guards are in the NFL. No one knows before this offseason, like, unless you were a Dolphins fan, you didn't know who the defensive tackles were. You didn't know who Christian Wilkins was. But for 1 week, free agency frenzy week, there's a salary cap. There's some structure in terms of the salary cap provides a structure for negotiation. And you find out, if you're a casual fan, who the interior defensive linemen are pretty quick, because all you have to do is pay attention for this 1 week.
And then they get a huge contract, and you're like, whoa, that guy's really good.
This is great. Yep, 100%.
You know what, though, too? Baseball always has excuses. When I was a kid, into my, probably my 30s, it was the reason why the DH will never be adopted by the National League, the senior circuit, is because owners don't want to pay an extra veteran, right? They don't want to pay that salary. They don't. And then all of a sudden it became convenient, and the DH was like seamlessly transitioned in. But that was always an excuse. We can't. No. Well,
imagine not having Jim Thome and David Ortiz.
But how about this? So like the biggest hang up is clearly the discussion of any semblance of salary cap. Okay. But how about this? Free agency frenzy. You create dates, and they're arbitrary because that's all of this is. They're arbitrary dates that are picked. And you group free agents. Group A free agents must be signed by January 5th, January 1st. I don't know. But the point is, the group A's are the ones that people are interested in, right? Because if there's some schlep, left-handed, loogie, situational guy, he can sign whenever. No one cares. But they'll say, oh, we can't do that because the group A's would get too upset. You're hurting your own game. I mean, the Harper one is Exhibit A. He should have been, there should have been an immediacy to sign him. And they should have come up with, that should have been done in the dead of winter. It was done on the dugout in Clearwater at Philly spring training. It got done so late.
So a couple things off that, and then we got to go because we got to record some flagrant howls. Anthony Edwards was the leading scorer in an exhibition game last night. So just to tie this up, and we'll come back to it later this month. But the Bryce Harper thing, for 2 reasons, is ridiculous. It was a 13-year deal, right? Or a 12-year deal?
Yeah. Yes, it was, yes.
So now, one of the premier players in Major League Baseball will never be a free agent again. So you will never be able to have how many times in the NBA has LeBron James potentially or actually been able to go to a different team? Because guess what? The contracts are 4 and 5 year max contracts. So the best players in the league pop up every few years for free agency. It's like, holy crap. Kevin Durant's a free agent again. Is he going to go to Golden State? Is he going to go to Brooklyn? Like, where is he going to go? So being able to offer up your highest profile players for a potential bidding war every 4 to 5 years is great for the offseason marketing of your sport, right?
Absolutely.
And the second thing, I like your tier A, tier B thing, but I think what would happen is teams and owners would just like band together to put crappy offers out before a deadline and be like, well, this is the offer. You either take it or not. I think what you should do is just put a parameter on the length of contract. There's no salary cap, so you can't put a parameter on like the amount of money. If you said, all right, The max contract you can sign in Major League Baseball is 5 years. So no longer are we negotiating over 13 years or 8. Right. It's a 5-year. So if there's a 27-year-old stud player up in free agency, well, he's getting 5 years. And now the only negotiation is whether it's $40 million a year, $30 million a year, or $50 million a year, or $100 million a year, right?
Yeah.
And then boom. And then he's a free agent again when he's 32, and it's exciting for everybody. Like this.
And you actually could put a max floor. So like the group A's would be so that they couldn't get, completely screwed, right? Like so a max floor
minimum 30 million or something.
Yeah. Exactly right. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh.
But I mean, baseball's always like, well, we can't do that. It's going to be too tough. And then they put in a pitch clock.
Yep. And it's fine. It's great. And nobody.
It's fantastic.
People love it. So, all right, we got that off our chest here. That's your Twins TV update. It'll play out further over the next few weeks here. He's the sports dad, Judd Zulgad. I am Phil Mackey. We'll see you guys next time on the Score North Twins Show.